Hey there, beautiful people. I'm Tracy Rigdon, and this is the Contrast Project Lounge podcast. In this episode, we're going to continue our series with part two of my discussions with Mr. Stephen Dare out of Jacksonville, Florida, where we discuss the ongoing political climate and the mayoral's race. Elections coming up, and in particular, we will be discussing again the Democratic candidate Donna Deegan. Are y'all ready for this? Let's go. Welcome back to the podcast. We're going to continue with our discussion with Stephen Dare tonight. This is part two of our discussion. Mainly what we were covering in the first part was the mayoral's race in Jacksonville, Florida, and in particular, Donna Deegan running for mayor. And Stephen happens to be a consultant for the Donna Deegan campaign. Stephen, how are you doing?
Oh man, I am fine as frog hair, which is, so fine you can't see it.
Yeah, always. And I see you're taking care of yourself. You're out at the gym tonight.
Oh yeah, up at Bailey's. I'm here 3 times a week now. I'm at that age.
Yeah. I feel you. I keep telling myself to make it a little bit more of a habit. I miss more days than I should. But I've got a home gym and plenty of space to roam around and bicycles and all that stuff and I miss more days than I should.
Yeah, I'm a little bit too Scottish. If I'm not paying for it, I won't do it. But if I'm
Yeah.
putting money for it, I'll be there.
That's a motivator, right.
Oh
Well,
yeah.
uh, we're going to go right into it. We know that as we discussed beforehand, we know that the elections in Jacksonville are coming up. They're just right around the corner. They're on Tuesday the 16th, and or Tuesday, and the early voting ends on Sunday. So we want to definitely go ahead and cover in depth some of the things that we didn't quite touch on in part one. We talked about infrastructure to a great deal, to I would say a great deal. There's still a lot to talk about, but we also covered the healthcare issues that Donna is facing. We also covered some of the housing crisis, but we're going to talk tonight. We're going to, as we agreed beforehand, we would like to delve into the issues that small businesses are facing in Northeast Florida, Jacksonville, Duval County.
Yeah, and dude, so like one of the things that happened about a year and a half ago, as we were just kind of looking around, and I think right now
Mm-hmm.
most Democratic candidates just say the South Side, Bay Meadows, it's just Republican, and we're not going to really try for it, right? Well, getting out there,
Right.
um, I was a young Republican back in the '80s, and I lived in the South Side, and there are
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people who would like to open up small businesses. In fact, they do. They open up a whole bunch of small businesses over there. But what we found
Right.
out was that it's been 20 years since there's been a Republican candidate that has bothered to drop by or ask anybody what they need. They're so sure of that vote that they've neglected it. And now there's a whole generation of young business owners who have not been reached out to by either Republican or Democrat. So getting
Mm.
into just kind of that area. And as you know, I was doing the Floating Seas Cafe in the aquarium shop
Mm.
over right off of Bay Meadows Road. Getting into it, dude, you just cannot believe how hard it is to open up a small business right now. The city has created so
Yeah.
much regulation and so much red tape and so much stupid stuff that you can spend a year, 2 years waiting to get your business open. And, as we were talking about
Mm-hmm.
Michael Armano, if you already started paying lease on that, you're going to be paying lease payments for 2 years before you can make your first sale, right? So
Right.
it's
Right.
incredibly hard, and there's not much support when you actually get right down to it. Nobody to guide you through the process, nobody to tell you this is what would save you time. They've got these crazy things that they ask, like if you're going into an older building, you have to
Hmm.
do a change of use, and you don't have to do
Right.
this with a new building, right? So, but in
Right.
order to get the change of use, you have to get a private engineer to certify it, and that privately costs you $10,000. So you're adding a $10,000 surcharge to everybody who wants to go into a building that is already existing, right? Imagine
Wow.
what that does to the existing stock of spaces available, and why people would rather wait until there's a new space so they don't have to go through all that. So, anyways, one of the things that just kind of came up when we're talking about like unequal opportunity around the city. And Tracy,
Hmm.
did you grow up here in Jax?
I grew up in Jax on the north side.
Oh yeah. So, do you remember the Small Business Administration back in the '80s and how they would
Hmm.
give free classes and stuff at UNF?
Yep. Yep.
Well,
Yep. Been to one
most,
of them.
yep, most people don't know it because it's only on the South Side, right? It's only at UNF, and they have free classes. They have these incredible
Hmm.
like assets and ways to educate yourself about how to like go into business. Like once you get out there,
Right.
here's some support. So,
Right.
were you in high school when there was still junior achievement?
I would
Remember
say
the kids from
yes,
JA?
to my knowledge. Yeah. Yep. Yep. Yep.
And they would set up, teenagers and small businesses. Like it was mostly selling
Hmm.
chocolate or selling candy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, it would prepare kids for like maybe I'm interested in doing a business. Maybe I made like 150 bucks
Right.
selling chocolate bars. So JA left the schools about 25 years ago. And the benefits of the Small Business Administration were never extended to any other part of town. It's not on the north side. You can't do it on the west
Hmm.
side. If you are a person who needs public transportation, you can't make it to any of those classes anyways. So if you're in
Hmm.
Mayport, you can't get to the Small Business Administration. So one of the things that we decided to do was a fully thought out program to make Jacksonville the small business capital of the Southeast, right?
Hmm.
Starting with reintroducing junior achievement back into the schools, encouraging the school board to get
Right.
involved with that.
Oh
Talking with
yeah.
the Small Business Administration to go ahead and put up satellite campuses at the North Side FSEJ, or we
Right.
have a ton of buildings that the city owns that are not used.
Hmm.
We maintain them, but there's nobody using them. So it's time to put those things to
Right.
use. She's got a
Sure.
program to not only start early, encourage people, educate, provide the kind of assets that white people like me and you knew about in the '80s, but nobody else knew about, right?
Right.
And make sure that's
Right.
available to everybody in town. But then on top of
Sure.
that, going back to that unused um, property that the city sits on, um, turning those into business incubators so that you have a small
Sure.
business idea, but you can't afford the $40,000 that it requires just to get space and insurance. But you can go into an incubator, go ahead and start getting a revenue stream going, and see if you've got what it takes to actually open up a business without
Hmm.
having to risk all of your savings and all of your family savings and go into debt, right?
Oh
So
yeah. Yeah.
incubators all over town. And then once you have a business that is viable, we propose to go into the neighborhoods themselves. Like, do you know what a business improvement district is?
Yes, I do. Hmm.
We only have one
Yep.
in town, and it's the downtown vision. And what they are basically is the people who own the commercial property agree to tax themselves 2% more a year, and then that goes into a fund, and they get to decide however they want to spend it. Maybe they want to build another road. Maybe they want to put in security lighting. Maybe they want to have ambassadors the way the downtown vision did. Maybe they want to throw a series of events that bring people out to their district. So what we'd like
Hmm.
to do is instead
Hmm.
of just one bid, we'd like to follow Chicago's example, where there's 30 bids, and every neighborhood
Oh
has
yeah,
some type of control over what they would like to see the
sure.
money spent on, instead of spending a whole bunch of time convincing a council person that maybe they should take it up, and then only find out that they're not going to fund it, right?
Right,
So
right. Yeah.
bids, the JA, spreading the Small Business Administration around, doing facade
Hmm.
grants in the distressed neighborhoods. So like over there in those
Sure.
like really wonderful commercial districts off of Blanding and off of Myrtle, to be able to go in
Hmm.
and you get your $5,000 to $15,000 to completely repaint or redo the front of the building, right, and spruce up the
Yep.
area. So you provided a kind of a start in business with the incubators. And then you're going to go on to these empowered business districts that are directed by a whole new generation of leaders, because, you know, there's someone that has to become the chairman of the business improvement district for San Marco or for wherever.
Right,
And we'd like to make
right.
73 little incubators for leadership in the city. So the
Oh,
small
that's nice.
business,
That's nice.
yeah, and I think if you have that type of attention and you have that type of support from the city, it wouldn't be too hard for us to become small business capital of the Southeast. So
No,
it's a
no.
major
And you
part
know,
of her.
hmm, right, right, right.
Go ahead.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I was going to say, they similar to the business improvement, the BID, um, over off of Stockton and all the Beaver Street area right in there, the rail yard district formed several years ago, and they're still in force. And they have regular meetings of the business members of all around
Mhm.
there, and they're all pleased with it. They've gotten some things done from the city because they have so many voices that will get on the city councilman that is involved in that area, and they've had success with it. I don't, they probably could have more success if there was a little bit more backing from the city, but something like that would be really good around a lot of areas that have, like you say, empty buildings that maybe the city holds the lease to or whatever.
Well, dude, this is like, there's a San Marco Merchants Association, there's a Murray Hill
Mm-hmm.
Merchants
Mm-hmm.
Association,
Right.
and the merchants associations are really awesome. And this would build on top of that. A business improvement district allows them to, again, they have to vote on it and they have to agree to it, but they tax themselves and the millage rate goes up
Mm-hmm.
2%. And you can raise $1 million, $2 million, because it's extrapolated out over 20 years, right? So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
imagine if the Murray Hill Merchants District, imagine if those guys could afford $1 million, every 2 years on an entertainment budget, or on repainting all of the streets, or adding in, a network of trees. But it gives a funding source directly to the merchants that they don't have to ask city council.
Right. Right. That's and like you said, it helps to. That's just one more check mark on the way to having something that's a little bit easier for them to get a hold of, like you say, and not just funds, but they have support throughout the community by themselves without even having to worry about any more red tape from the city. If the city gets,
Right.
the city's got their back, and the group is there, but they still can get together as a membership group and talk and have and
And
share
this
opinions on what the money should be spent on. Like you say, it's phenomenal. It does work.
Yeah, dude, it's been 25 years of the districts being ignored unless they create a noise about it, right? Like the
Yeah.
business of the city is business. And if all the
Hmm.
small businesses do well, that's 80% of the economy. Big corporate outlets, it's only 20%. Small businesses are 80% of this economy. And if you can make the 80% do better, the whole city does better. So it's
Sure.
it's just, it seems ridiculous that nobody has approached the small business districts or the small business people, and especially as we're moving into an era where internet shopping is taking out the shopping malls and the shopping districts. Like, small businesses are pretty much the best, most reliable form of making your own family money over the next 20 years. Like, you need to be in
Oh
a small
yeah.
business to have any
Yeah. Yeah.
security.
Yeah.
And, even then it's small business. But with a little bit of help, imagine what we could have done if we hadn't spent hundreds of millions of dollars on corporations that never came.
Right. Right. And small businesses, like you say, if they, for instance, Murray Hill, if they had $1 million to spend on entertainment or paint or trees or what have you on their main strip there, well, those main strips work right into the infrastructure part of the plan as well. Because if you clean up those strips, you're talking about creating those little parishes again, the little areas, the pockets of town that are thriving because they're walkable. Their neighbors own the businesses. Chances are, you don't have a big box store in the middle of those walkable neighborhoods. They're just not there. They have to jump on a
Right.
bus or the car to get there, but they can walk the neighborhood. Their main street is all cleaned up. They got a few trees there, nice paint job, and a bunch of little small businesses lined up down the road. What's wrong with
Yes,
that?
my God. Can you imagine? And it's like, it's just, it's always been crazy to me. Because as you may know, I was involved in Springfield in the
Mm-hmm.
20s and the 2000s. And in the 1990s, I was in Five Points, and I was downtown. And before that, I learned a lot from John Currington when he was putting together San Marco. And while the
Mm-hmm.
interior city was falling apart, San Marco, Riverside, Springfield, and the little arts district downtown, dude, those things took off. And they were successes
Mm-hmm.
where the rest of the city policy had failed. And so it was failing
Yeah.
in 2000, and we never updated, right? It's time to
Right.
update it. And more than that, it's time to move into the future.
Oh, absolutely. It is. It is. Well, just like she says with her slogan, change for good. This is a good thing.
Yes, yes. And it puts
Absolutely.
power back into the hands of smaller people. So
Mm-hmm.
we shouldn't
Mm-hmm.
be begging people for what they should have already paid for 20 years ago. I mean, that we're even in the
Right.
position of, please, will you fix the plumbing of our neighborhood after 50 years of lying about
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
You know,
Oh, yeah. The septic
that's
tanks.
ridiculous.
They have. Yeah. They haven't touched
We
those things.
shouldn't,
They've
that's
been
a,
promising to get rid of it. It's crazy.
dude, it's a failure of leadership. It's a failure of
Mm-hmm.
leadership. We've been so
Yep.
concerned in, like, some of these big ticket projects that never happened, and nobody
Mm-hmm.
ever led to empower. You give a man a fish and he'll eat for a day, teach a man a fish and he'll eat for the rest of his life. And this
Right.
is part of that. It's part of the self
Mm-hmm.
empowerment.
Right. Absolutely. And part of leading up to it, segue right into it, the small businesses, but proportionately spend city money with minority-owned businesses, because there's a lot of
Yes.
minority businesses that are trying. That they're just knuckles to the wheels, getting through the process to open a business, like you say, that can take time and money, and then to keep it going and not to have the backing of the city. It's just not fair.
Right. And the thing about this particular part of the platform that is amazing is, you could say we're going to work towards equalization, but if you've got the same resources in the same whites only neighborhoods that they've always been in, like, come
Mm-hmm.
on, how do you think that's going to work?
Right.
But this one
Right.
is, let's take the resources and put them in the actual neighborhoods so that people have an equal playing field, right? And make up for the fact that we have overregulated small business to where it's unaffordable by having,
Mm-hmm.
these incubation centers and, share the resources and show people how to do that, and then put them in a position to be in a small business district that is not having to beg for basic resources because they can raise their
Right.
own
Right.
infrastructure money, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So that really appeals to me a lot about Donna. Um, and Dan was the president, or he was the CEO of the chamber for 10 years, and not a goddamn thing was
Mm-hmm.
done for small businesses. Like we heard a lot about big,
Right. Right.
big companies here, but nothing for small businesses.
Right. Right. Yeah. Probably the only thing really that stands out in my mind that he accomplished over there, which was a big thing, but it's really the only thing that stood out was the propane, liquid propane uh, distribution that he had somewhat a lot to do with. There's the distribution of liquid propane at the docks, and there's a big center out here on the west side. But that's really the only thing that comes to mind.
Towards kind of that way of thinking, one of the infrastructure projects that the city has just walked away from the money from is installing
Mm-hmm.
electric charging stations all over the city, right? There's plenty of
Yeah.
federal money
Yeah.
for it. The city, in its wisdom, decided that it did not want any of that dirty federal money because, Biden. So they are going to not
Yeah.
invest in the infrastructure of our future of transportation, and it's a freaking transportation city. This is a logistics town,
Right.
and you're not going to invest in
Right.
that because you don't like a Democrat in the White House? Are you fucking kidding me, dude? So
I know.
this will
I
be
know.
another major thing. Did I? I think I just dropped the F bomb. Oh God, I'm becoming a Democrat. Um, so
That's all right.
yeah. So
Sometimes that's the only word that's appropriate.
yep.
Yeah, I'm gonna hit my water
So
too.
she another one of her major parts of her platform is looking back at the DNA of how a city works, which is the planning, the
Mm-hmm.
zoning, and the codes, right? So I
Right.
think
Right.
one of the things that we will hopefully be asking is that if you're going to develop a condo in Jacksonville, a certain portion of those units have to be workforce housing, right? We have to
Yes.
get
Yes.
away from this
Yes.
idea that we're going to segregate the poor and the wealthy. And then, you have this not my backyard movement where nobody
Oh
wants to
yeah.
have the project where the poor people live. So, okay, great.
Mm-hmm.
Let's break it up so that everything is equally kind of distributed. So where you've got
Mm-hmm.
workforce and affordable housing in the same building that you've got luxury, and make it a safe environment so that everybody's happy, instead of what we have been doing, which is failing. We're 40,000 units
Right.
short of just affordable housing right now, and that's now. Give it
Mm-hmm.
4 more years, and that 40,000 is going to be 70,000 short because of the rate of our growth. So,
Right.
what's the alternative? We're going to build in the floodplains because that's the plan now. So let's go
Yeah.
ahead and build another 50,000, 60,000 units in areas that we know for a fact will be underwater in 20 years. So
Yeah. Like
there's
Boney
just a
Road.
lot of common.
Like Boney Road. Yeah.
Yes, it's like, dude, there used to be a comedian named Sam Kinison, and he was talking about the relocation of the Ethiopians to the desert because it's not a famine, it's all fucking sand, right? How are you going to grow anything in a bunch of sand? How are you going to build on swampland in a floodplain in a state
Right.
that's flooding
Right.
every day? So,
Right.
it's just, I think Deegan is a lot more common sense and a lot less jingoish. Like, you
Yes.
know,
Yes.
sh- yeah, she has serious thought that has gone into every part of what she wants to get done, and at the end of it, she wants to leave each part of what she does a better place than she found
Oh, absolutely. Well, she does seem to have a good vision for the future. She has future vision,
it.
whereas
Yes,
it seems as though, yeah, she's looking way in the future at spending the dollars now that we can afford and that we can get in the area that haven't been sought after for, like we've said before. Spend on things now that will benefit the city in the future.
We just found out today that the feds have made a $500 million pot of money for cities to
Yeah,
create tech hubs inside their cities, medium-sized cities like Jacksonville. So, if
yeah,
I'm sure you know Mark and the robotics place that he has. It's specifically
oh
for
yeah,
development of tech
yeah,
like robotics and bioengineering and space trade. We have a spaceport here
yeah,
that the city has ignored for 25 years, right?
yeah.
Elon Musk is talking about moving to Florida. He won't be coming to Jacksonville because we treat it like it's a joke. So that will change with Donna.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that
people like that should be courted to come. Even though, like you said, let's work with the small businesses too. But if they were to be more serious about the spaceport with someone like Elon or a high tech Cecil business Cecil Commerce Center is perfect for a place like that. It was built for military basically. So I mean, it's set up. It will handle. It's got existing warehouses on site, existing buildings that can be refurbished, plenty of space. It's surrounded by woods. So it is a perfect place to have a tech incubator type facility.
oh yeah,
And it's
Boeing is
nearby.
out there
And it's,
now.
yeah, and it's plenty close by to where there could be more affordable housing. There could be workforce housing because there's not a lot of development up and down the road in that area. Not a lot.
So, so you can imagine that we take a portion of that grant, that maybe we get 15 million, right? And we put 5 million of
Mm-hmm.
that into assisted scholarships for people that would like to study tech here in Jacksonville at one of our universities.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
a $5,000 scholarship goes a long way if you do it every year for students.
Sure.
And then
Sure.
they have a built-in environment that they can start a high-tech business with assistance both from us and from the federal government to do so. And then you're right next to a
Yeah.
spaceport and Boeing. Come on. I mean,
Right.
nobody's.
I'd like to thank all my friends, fans, and followers over on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Please don't forget to like, share, and comment. And on our YouTube channel, like, share, comment, and smash the subscribe button. Don't forget to ring that bell so you get notifications whenever we have a new episode come up. And don't forget that the podcast itself, the audio version, can be streamed on all major streaming platforms. And you can find my crazy shenanigans over on TikTok. Well, in my closing thoughts, we had some video technicality problems there, but the entire process, the entire interview will be available on our streaming platforms. In wrapping it up, all in all, we went on to further talk about Donna's, first days, weeks, months in the office of mayor and what she would do. And she does have an incredible vision, and we are both of the consensus that she is by far the most qualified candidate and the most passionate candidate in a genuine way to end some of the old ways that Jacksonville government has been running for decades. A lot of broken promises, a lot of things in not only the infrastructure and health care and affordable housing, all of those things. The government and the powers that be that have been leading the Jacksonville metropolitan area and actually Duval County is a feeder to all the surrounding counties. So what affects Duval County affects the surrounding counties. Make no mistake. So, when you go to cast your votes on Tuesday, if you haven't already done so, think about that. Do you want things to continue to be status quo? Do you want things to continue the way they have been? I think not. And sometimes it's more than just growing pains. Sometimes there's a cost up front. We have to understand that in a big metropolitan area, and certainly not the largest city in the country. By area, sure, but there's a lot of things to take into consideration when running a government that size. A lot of things, but the people come first. And so all of these things that are on Donna Deegan's platform are doable, attainable, and I think she's the right person to do it, honestly. I do. And that would be why my friend Stephen Dare works for her campaign as a consultant. As he said before, when I asked him in the first part of this series, was he a consultant? As a disclaimer for you viewers, was my next guest, Stephen Dare, a consultant for the Donna Deegan campaign? And he said yes, and proudly. And I would have to say the same. I am a supporter of Donna Deegan, and proudly so, and don't mind telling anybody about it. The views on this show are mine. It's my show. These are my views. So, listen, as I always tell you guys when I sign off, in the meantime, take care of yourselves and each other. Until next time, peace.